At 5-2, the Seahawks are tied for the most wins in the NFC. What do they need to do to become a true contender in the second half? Let's assume no trades. What do they have to improve at to be that genuine contender in the conference? We'll be breaking it all down here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined here for Blue Friday by my co-host, Nick Lee, and a special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in, whether you're in Arlington, Washington, or you are listening down in Arlington, Texas. We appreciate each and every one of you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We are in the midst of a bye week, no Seahawks games to prepare for. Normally, we'd be diving into our keys to victory and picks to click. I mean, maybe we'll have some picks to click for the bye week, but probably not. We are instead going to be having some fun with some bye week games. We've got our bye week superlatives, who has stood out as the most valuable player, most improved, unheralded, unsung hero. We've got a bunch of them coming your way, and a fun game of What's the Odds heading into the second part of the schedule, all brought your way by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Now for your lead story here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. As we broke down yesterday, there's going to be a lot of chatter about the upcoming trade deadline. And certainly the Seahawks in the past have been as active as anyone under John Schneider, and he's been as good as anyone at finding quality players that can upgrade a roster. Wouldn't count him out doing that again this year. With that being said, let's assume that there aren't any moves that are going to be made to the trade deadline, and the Seahawks decide to sit pat. They've got a bunch of players coming back from injury. Those are kind of trade deadline additions of sorts coming out of the bye week. Nick, let's talk about the scenario if that's what plays out. There's no new additions. Maybe you already think the Seahawks are a contender. I still think they are in that next tier down, but they are closing in. I absolutely think they can get there. But there are clearly areas that this 5-2 team, they haven't had a complete game, as Mike McDonald said after the game Monday night. Certainly that was far from a complete game that they won against Houston. Let's talk areas where this team, as currently constructed, must improve if they want to be viewed as a true contender in the NFC.
I think almost the fan base in unison goes the run game. The run game's got to get better. I was listening to Bump and Stacy in Seattle Sports Radio, and they had Benjamin Solak on from ESPN, and he was saying that no quarterback faces a heavier box and less in deep coverage than Sam Darnold does, and he expects that might change over the course of the year if the Seahawks continue to fail to run the ball and Darnold continues to dice things up through the air. So they're going to have to figure that out. I mean, they're 27th in run and yards per carry, 31st in rushing EPA per rush. And we were discussing off air over the last couple of days with your film breakdowns and things like that. You know, of course, it's easy to blame the offensive line. Of course, they are a huge part of it. Great, you got Gray. Gray Zabel is a weird one because if you look at Pro Football Focus, they do not like Gray Zabel, but he's also first of any interior offensive lineman in run block win rate per ESPN. So I'm not sure where we land there. But, of course, Anthony Bradford is the subject of ire in the fan base as usual. And, of course, that is a huge area that they could improve on in the trade deadline. We discussed that last week with a few names. And while, yes, offensive line is an issue, especially in the interior, I think both tackles grade out fairly well, Cross and Lucas in the run game. Sendell has been kind of hit and miss. But Bradford at the guard spot for sure. And also running backs. I was kind of diving into some numbers. I was reading some of your pieces, Corbin, on Emerald City Spectrum. And also just looking into some numbers. Kenneth Walker is 41st in rushing success rate among running backs. He's 10th in yards before contact, which I thought was interesting given the offensive line issues. and also 31st in yards per carry after contact. So there's a lot of inconsistencies with some of the numbers. And Zach Charbonnet has been getting stuffed a lot too. So I don't think it's all on the offensive line. But of course, the Anthony Bradford situation, and neither running back has truly got completely full steam ahead yet.
Yeah, and look, this team is dead last in terms of runs that are 0 or negative yards. They've had 49 of them this year if you exclude quarterback Neal. So that is, to me, the biggest issue. There has been some really good tape put out there for this run game. There's just been way too many of those negative plays, and I don't think it is all on the offensive line. I'd say it's probably 75-25, but look, there's a play that I posted that has drawn some ire from a few former players. They don't agree with me. Look, I'm sticking with it. That was an outside split zone concept. You had a 3-tech with outside leverage. You cut that back inside. You teach Pee-wee leaguers that. That was the wrong read. I'm sorry. That goes down to the running back. You can have plays where blocking breaks down and you can still get good yardage if you trust your keys. And that was not an example of that. So both these guys, but I think Ken Walker has had more issues with that. So they got to get the run game going. 100% agreement. Stating the obvious, this team's got to be better in third down. It's crazy that they're 5th in points per game. I mean, that tells you how explosive they've been. But the last 2 weeks in particular, we're talking sub 25% third down conversion rates. You can't beat quality football teams doing that. They've been fortunate. Their defense has been really good, and that's prevented them from having those issues. They still put up 27 points is the crazy thing. With 4 turnovers and all the third down issues, they still had almost 30 points. So just think what this team could do if they stopped getting in their own way. The third down conversion rate is a huge issue. And going to the defensive side of the ball, I think you could talk about this as a team theme in some regards. They've had their issues. The 2 losses that they had, they could have finished with wins. They didn't finish those games. But I think it's been a bigger issue. Everyone's going to maybe scoff at this because Darnold, had the fumble and the interception. The interception bounced off a dude's helmet. It was unfortunate, but there have been a lot of missed opportunities by the defense to finish plays, whether it's interceptions, recovering fumbles. They have yet to recover one this year. This is a defense that has to figure out how to finish. They've been so good in everything else, but that, I think, is a finishing touch. They got to have a finishing touch on defense for this group to truly play to the level that I believe it's capable of consistently, and that is as a Super Bowl caliber defense. But they got to finish plays, in particular in the secondary. Mike McDonald was talking about the dropped interceptions against the Texans. I counted 6 of them that should have been picks on there. Josh Jobe had 2. You have to catch the football. You got to, as Mike McDonald says, go to the Leslie Frazier school of catching the football. They got to do something out there with his drills because they're just been the finishing touches are not there. And that's not including the plays where they were in position like Reek Woolen was a couple times in week 1 and just didn't make the play. Finishing touch is crucial to me. If you want to be able to finish off in the playoffs, finish getting a playoff spot, you got to be able to do that on defense.
Yeah, one more thing also on the third downs for offense is what I wanted to point out. The average down and distance for the Seahawks right now on third down is 3rd and 7.73. And I looked around the NFC West. I didn't want to do these for the entire league because I didn't have time. But so they're 3rd and 7.73. The Rams are at 3rd and 5.82. The Niners are at 5.92. And the Cardinals, the incompetent Cardinals, are at 3rd and 7.52. So the Seahawks are dead last in the NFC West as far as average third down distance. That's got to change. And then going to the defense again, like you said, finishing, and I think that includes tackling as well, because you said, yeah, the turnovers, C.J. Stroud had 6 turnover-worthy plays per Pro Football Focus against the Seahawks. And tackling, the Seahawks actually have the 2nd most missed tackles per Pro Football Reference after, just below the atrocious Cincinnati Bengals. So if you take the Cincinnati Bengals out of the NFL, the Seahawks have the most missed tackles in the NFL. So that's got to change. And of course, if we're going to bring up Anthony Bradford on offense, we got to bring up Reek Woolen, of course, on defense. We know that. Speaking of ire from the fan base, my brother, actually, it's funny, this morning was texting me about, he's a big Eagles fan. It's like, hey, I hear the Eagles and Seahawks might swing a trade and maybe Reek Woolen comes to Philly. That'd be awesome. I was like, go ahead. Let's talk. And he's like, oh, I thought he was good. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. And I explained to him, sure, he's got all the elite talent in the world. But, man, there's some times where there's no finish. There's no, the turnovers, the missed tackles. And it's not just Rick Woolen. He's just kind of the poster child of if this Seahawks defense has any warts, it's that. It's the missed tackles, missed opportunities to finish, because he's got this. He, speaking of Woolen, has the second highest missed tackle rate among any defensive backs in the NFL, 104th out of 118 in coverage grade. So yeah, not great there. And also we've seen great progress from, excuse me, Uchenna Nwosu, Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, rushing the passer, of course. It would be really nice to get the complementary pieces in there too, with Boye Mafe, I think he's fifth in the NFL as far as pass rush win rate among edges, and doesn't have a sack yet.
He's not turning into production though.
I know it's almost, I bring this up again. It's almost like bat bip in baseball. Like, oh, that line drive 100 miles an hour had an average, batting average of 800, but it found the third baseman's glove. Maybe he's getting to that where he keeps in that win rate. He keeps that up. He'll eventually start getting those sacks and finishing, which again is the theme here.
Yeah, that is really the theme for the defense in particular. Just finish, finish, finish. And if they could find a way to do that, this defense has a chance to be a special one in the second half, especially getting Devin Witherspoon, Julian Love, Derek Hall back, hopefully after the bye week. Hopefully they can keep them in the lineup. You have a chance for a really special group, but it's all about finishing. When we come back, we are in the bye week. It's time to dish out our midseason superlatives, MVPs, the unsung hero, and a bunch of others. Those will be coming your way up next here on our Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. The NFL season is now in week 8, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. If you're somebody that likes player props, you can look at how many touchdowns Sam Darnold is going to throw in week 9 against the Commanders, or you can build a same-game parlay with multiple prop bets for week 8. You can jump into the action and do some quick bets as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS. That's SAD, software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance, and it's all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. By uniting your employees, teams, and departments into one system, Rippling removes the bottlenecks, busy work, and silos your software created. Everything from onboarding to payroll to IT access runs automatically and perfectly in sync. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just fill the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/lockedonNFL. That's learning more at rippling.com/lockedonNFL. That's rippling.com/lockedonNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. He's Nick Lee. A special thanks to every one of the 12s tuning in out there. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. As we do every year when the bye week arrives, it's tough if you have like a week 5 bye because that's not really close to the midseason. But a week 8 bye, we're close to a 50-50 here. So we are going to dish out our bye week superlatives, everything from MVP to the most improved to top rookie. We're going to dive into all those, and we're going to start right with the heavy hitters here. MVP, and I would think that a lot of our listeners are going to immediately shout one name here, and I know, Nick, that you are going to join that group as well, and why not? Jackson Smith-Njigba is making history. He's on pace for history right now.
They wouldn't be shouting a name. They'd be shouting an acronym, JSN. And I was part of that scrum a couple of years ago when it was Scott Van Pelt Monday Night Football against the Eagles when JSN caught that touchdown from Drew Lock to win the game, and there was that scrum after the game with Scott Van Pelt. I was in that crowd. That was a lot of fun, chanting JSN. That was a lot of fun. And Jackson Smith-Njigba, I think, is without a doubt on that list. I mean, if the season ended today, I would be disappointed if he wasn't Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, straight up, he's leading the NFL in receiving yards by almost 200 yards. I mean, but he's like the Cal Raleigh of receiving touchdowns or receiving yards right now. I mean, he is pacing the league and then some. And, we wondered, okay, without DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, of course, JSN's very talented, but like, what does that look like for him? Where does he line up? Like, with more attention to him, how does that? He has absolutely met every challenge and destroyed it. You've broken it down a few times where teams are trying. Teams are trying to bracket him, to slow him down, and it is just simply not working. And looking at the draft class from 2023 with JSN, you got Puka Nacua, Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston, Dalton Kincaid, all those guys. Only Nacua has more receiving yards in their career than JSN to this point, and he's quickly closing that gap between him and Nacua. So absolutely, it's without a doubt JSN. You could certainly make an argument for the arm at the other end of JSN, but I'm going to go JSN for this one.
And I'm going to make an argument for the arm at the other end because there's more to it here than just what he's doing with JSN. I mean, those guys have been cooking as well as any QB receiver duo out there. But I just saw this stat before the show. The Seahawks have had 9 sacks on Sam Darnold in the first 7 games. That is the fewest that they have had in the first 7 games in a season in franchise history. So everybody's going to look at the offensive line, and that's part of it. The O-line, I think, has been much better in pass protection than run blocking this year across the board. They have been much better there. But I also think a big part of this is Sam Darnold getting the darn ball out quickly. And when he is taking hits, he's getting the ball out. Like, he's got 5 touchdown passes this year when under duress, which is tied for the 3rd most in the NFL. This is not like I've joked about this. He's now the 5th Ghostbuster. He's seeing the ghosts, but he is eliminating them and he's making them pay. He is having a really good season. I know he had some mistakes Monday night, but like he still made a lot of big plays. They still scored 27 points. To me, Sam Darnold is what's making this offense hum. And even when the situation in the pocket isn't good, 99% of the time he's making big plays there. So to me, Sam Darnold, the quarterback, he's the natural fit here. Let's get to our next one, and that will be the most improved player. And I actually had kind of a hard time with this one. I had 3 or 4 players that jumped out to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the testament to a good team. You see guys progressing. One for me just jumps out off the page as he has been jumping out of, behind the offensive backfield, and that is Byron Murphy. Byron Murphy, former first-round pick from a year ago. Yeah, had kind of a slow burn of a rookie year, marred by some injury, and and didn't quite have those sexy numbers. But boy, he has truly gone from the Charmander to Charmeleon. He is full-blown Charizard now. I mean, he has gone to that evolution so fast. 4.5 sacks, 2nd on the team in pressures. He's 8th among all interior defensive linemen in the entire NFL in pressures. He has truly evolved into that true evolution of a first-round for defensive tackle talent out of Texas. And he is playing right now in the same way I envisioned him when the Seahawks drafted him. I was picturing moments in my head when the Seahawks drafted Byron Murphy, and right now in this season, that is coming to fruition much more, of course, than last year. So it kind of felt inevitable. I don't know if this is cheating because he's a first-round pick who should be playing like this, but just the year-to-year jump, which felt inevitable with his talent, is now here.
And I'm going to go to the guy that just came really out of nowhere in the last 2 weeks. Is he's looked more like Zach Thomas than Drake Thomas. This guy is making tackles left and right. He's getting his hands on the football in coverage. 3 pass breakups, and all 3 of them were difficult ones. Like they weren't just, quarterback threw bad passes or whatever. They were good throws that he just played better defense than the throw. And he's got a couple of sacks. He's been involved in the blitzing game. He's been a big part of the run defense, being the number 1 run defense in football. It's kind of come out of nowhere. And so to me, yes, Byron Murphy II has made a big jump, but Drake Thomas went from being a guy that was kind of a fringe roster guy to he looks like a legitimate starting will linebacker here the last few weeks. So I've got Drake Thomas repping me for that one as my most improved. Biggest surprise. This one's kind of wide open, Nick, in the sense that, it could be a guy coming back from injury. It could be a guy that was not even on the roster that got signed. It could be a practice squatter that's done things. Kind of more of a wide open one.
Yeah, and I don't want this to sound like I'm surprised that he's doing good. Uchenna Nwosu. This is not that I think he's not a good player and all of a sudden he is a good player. I truly just wondered what kind of form Nwosu would be after just playing 12 games in the last 2 years combined, missing 22 games the last 2 years combined with a myriad of injuries. And now he is one of the more productive edge rushers in the NFL. 18th in pressures in the entire NFL. 12th with 5 sacks. I mean, he's been the guy that the Seahawks nabbed several seasons ago, and he had that first really nice season, and then it's kind of been hit and miss since then with injuries. So it's not that I'm surprised he's doing this well. It's the surprise for me is we didn't quite know what we were going to get from Uchenna Nwosu after all these injuries. We knew he had this in him, but now it's on full display of why the Seahawks believe so much in Nwosu, and he's such an integral part of this defense.
And I'm going to the secondary with a player who I openly doubted whether he was going to be able to play in the slot when the Seahawks claimed him off waivers from the Rams. That's Darian Kendrick. He had been exclusively a boundary player. I looked at his testing and I just thought this is not going to be a great fit playing inside. All he did was just completely prove me wrong. And look, I'm willing to eat crow when I'm wrong on things like that. But he comes in, and for Devin Witherspoon, he has a pick in the end zone against Pittsburgh. He has another interception the next week. He had 3 pass breakups. Probably should have had 3 or 4 interceptions, if we're being honest. Now, he hasn't played much in recent weeks because Nick Eamon is now healthy, and he's getting those slot reps even when Witherspoon's out. But every chance he's had, he's come in and played well. And I think it's just the position. If you would have told me he was playing boundary corner, I said, well, he did okay in LA. I was skeptical that he could play that slot position. He's looked really good with extended opportunities. So Darian Kendrick to me is the biggest surprise with this team. All right, let's get to the unsung hero real quick. The guy who really has been a glue player that we just weren't anticipating was going to be that this year among amid this 5-2 start.
Well, it's not that I didn't expect him to be, excuse me, still fighting through this all month. A major contributor, but AJ Barner has not only been a contributor, but is emerging as one of the more well-rounded tight ends in the entire league. And no, he's probably not going to be a top 5-6 round pick in your fantasy draft, and unless you're in like a crazy 16, 18 team league or something. But minimum of 10 targets, he's the 5th highest graded tight end per Pro Football Focus. He's got the 3rd most receiving touchdowns among tight ends. He grades out well in blocking. He's he's the perfect tight end. He doesn't make waves. He doesn't cause distractions by dating international superstars. Or maybe not yet. I don't know what his personal life is like.
Give him time.
Give him time. Yeah. But he's just, really, he's unsung in that way where he's not flashy, not putting up these crazy, sexy numbers, but he's efficient. He's there when you need him. He's a great security blanket, and he's a willing blocker and a good blocker. So an unsung hero of this 5-2 start, especially on offense for me, is AJ Barner, just because when I thought a little bit of last year was a little fluky with some of the numbers. Dead wrong. Not fluky. I think he's on his way to being a very fine tight end in this league.
Yeah, and I'm going with Ty Akata here. And I've talked a lot about him on this show in terms of just defending him when fans were coming after him on some plays that were not his fault. I have already spoken my piece on that. But you can put the raw numbers out there. He started 4 of the 7 games with Julian Love being banged up. And with all that playing time, 27 tackles. He's got 1.5 sacks. He has got 2 quarterback hits. He has been actively involved in the secondary. He had a great pass breakup that took away a touchdown, a surefire touchdown for the Texans the other night. Xavier Hutchinson was open. He had beaten Reek Woolen outside. And Ty Akata at full extension knocked the ball down. And he's a willing hitter. He comes up and he makes plays in the run game. He bashes dudes when they do catch the ball in front of him. He just plays kind of with that reckless abandon that I think you're looking for. And there's some control to it. But it's really been fun to watch how much he has improved, just having confidence out there. And with all the injuries, they haven't missed a beat. I mean, the 3-1 in the games he started And other than the Tampa Bay game, they've shut offenses down really in those other 3 games. Takata has been a big part of that. Real quick, top rookie, Nick. Who is your top rookie? I actually had a couple names that popped to the front of my tongue here. I'm curious where you stand on this one.
Well, it's good. It's a good thing that you had a couple to choose from. I'm going to go Nicky Manwari. I know he had a slow start. Minimum 100 snaps. He is the second highest graded defensive rookie behind Jihad Campbell of the Eagles. 4th highest graded defensive back, period, when you have that sample size. So smaller sample size, but he is clearly showing why the Seahawks, once again, I said last week, were tripping over themselves, over their shoelaces to get to the podium to take this guy, because he is emerging already as a very fine defensive back in this league.
And I'm going with Torrey Horton. He's only caught 9 passes, but 3 of them have been touchdowns. He's got a 95-yard punt return touchdown, now the longest in franchise history. I mean, he's scored 4 touchdowns on just a limited amount of time. And, oh, by the way, he's 4th in punt return average. So he's been really good consistently returning punts. So I actually considered Gray Zabel for this too, because I think Gray Zabel's done a lot of good things up front, but Torrey Horton's got the impact plays. And if Emmanwori had been healthy for the entire season, I'd probably lean in that way because I'd expect the numbers would match up. But Torrey Horton's been putting points on the board. He's been electric when he's had the football in his hands. He's the top rookie for me. When we come back, we are going to shift gears to what's the odds, and one of our favorite games here on Locked On Seahawks. That'll be coming your way. Don't miss it. We'll be back here on the Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought your way by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what makes them move every time they drive. And that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. As an athlete focuses on all the details, Mazda does the same. From metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather, you can feel it the moment you get behind the wheel. The smooth handling, intuitive controls, and standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. Whether it's a quick drive over to the practice field or a weekend road trip to see the Hawks, Mazda makes even everyday drives feel special. It's the small details that make the big plays. And just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back to the Blue Friday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined for today's Blue Friday show by my co-host, Nick Lee. And a special thanks to each and every one of the 12s listening in. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate your support of the podcast. We are in the midst of bye week. No Seahawks game this weekend. I guess on the plus side, no stress for fans. You don't have to worry about any of that. Only one team in the NFC West is even playing this weekend. The 49ers have a game, but the Rams and the Cardinals are also off. So enjoy this time off, just like the players. As we do every year when we get to bye week, it's time for What's the Odds, one of our favorite games. We're going to read off a statement, and you and I are going to give a percentage chance that that statement happens, and we're going to go big or go home here right off the bat, Nick. What's the odds here? I actually put over on or under on the graphics, so my apologies, but it's what's the odds. Jackson Smith-Njigba breaks Calvin Johnson's single season record. He currently is on pace to do so.
Man, just so we're on the same page, record is 1,964 from Megatron in 2012. JSN is currently on pace with the extra game, of course, for 1,989. So about, 25 more yards with how insane of a pace he is on. It just feels like this is like a mind-boggling pace. And he's only just 20 yards ahead of Megatron in that, with the extra game involved. Also, if you're bored, just go look at Calvin Johnson's Pro Football Reference page. It's like a Barry Bonds, in baseball. You just go look at those if you're bored. It's a lot of fun.
A lot of bold.
Yeah, a lot of bold, a lot of italics. And with that, I just think, look, the weather's going to get worse. And so, and I think, like we mentioned in the first segment, the defenses are probably going to adjust a little bit. Even if he's still going to have a fine season, I still think he's going to be an all-pro. Personally, I think it's more likely that Jar Jar Binks is canonically named a Sith Lord than this happening. I'm going to go 11% because that's his number. I had to throw that in there. Sorry. this pace is almost unhealthy, unsustainable a little bit, but it's not impossible. But I just think with all the things together, and he's just barely ahead. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm going 3%. I think that it's possible, but all it takes is one game where you only have 50 receiving yards, and then you're like, oh, he's way behind the pace now. That's the reality here. Could it happen? Yeah, I'm not ruling it out, but I'm going to go 3% on that one. I just think that this is a record that's going to be really hard to topple because that was just a spectacular season. Next one here, what's the odds? Sam Darnold averages north of 8.8 yards per attempt and completes 70% of his passes. Those are two marks that are difficult to get to individually. Doing them in the same season is pretty tricky as well.
Right. And so just for context, we said 8.8. So last year he was at 7.9 with Minnesota, which was easily the best year of his career. He's at 9.1 right now, which leads the NFL. And so that is not entirely unattainable. Honestly, it's the 70% that gets me. He has not reached that in his whole career. Didn't even reach that last year. So those together, I'm going to go 14%, his number, because it's not impossible, but feels, again, like the JSN thing, just a little unsustainable, but still very solid. Yeah.
I'm going to sound crazy here. I'm going to go 50%. I like the odds, and I'm going to tell you why. First off, aside from this last game, really, I mean, the accuracy's been going down the last few weeks. I expect that there's going to be several games though where he's above 70% again. He is right on the precipice of hitting 70%. And this offense with JSN and Torrey Horton, they're going to hit on some of those deep balls to Torrey Horton. Like, it seems like to me, I know 8.8 for an entire season is insane, but like we're halfway through the year and he's got a decent edge over that right now. Like, I think this is possible. I think Sam Darnold can do this. And it's crazy. I think the fact that it's not a super high volume passing attack makes it a little more likely that you can attain these two things together. So I'm going to go right at 50% on that. Next one, what's the odds? Ken Walker III runs for 1,000 yards and Zach Charbonnet scores 10 touchdowns. Right now, both these guys are on pace to achieve these feats.
And that's with the run game struggling. Honestly, 1,000 yards in the 17 games isn't crazy impressive anymore. 59 rushing yards per game. But still, it's a fun mark to reach. I think he gets there. And Charbonnet on pace for 12 touchdowns. I think he's at 5. I'm going to go 60%. 60%. I'm fairly optimistic this will happen, especially with I do believe the run game is going to just naturally improve. So I think these numbers will go along with it.
I'm going 90%. Look, the only reason I'm not going higher than that is because, well, there could be injuries for one of the other. So you always have to consider that. But Ken Walker right now is easily on pace for 1,000 yards. Sharb is clearly the red zone guy. They're giving him the ball in those situations. Fantasy guys, fantasy owners call him touchdown vultures. That's kind of what he's becoming in this offense. And both these, they're well ahead of pace. And I think they both get there. I think this one is a slam dunk. Next one, maybe don't feel quite the same way. What's the odds? Boye Mafe or Derek Hall finishes with 5 or more sacks. Right now, neither one of them has even half a sack this season, Nick.
Yeah, they're off to a slow start. And we kind of talked about that earlier with finishing. I mean, we're only 2 seasons removed from Boye Mafe having 7 straight games with a sack. So we know that's in there. Hall just needs to get healthy and stay healthy. This might be optimistic for me with the track record Mafe has. And like I mentioned, he's 5th among edge rushers in pass rush win rate. Those are going to, I think, start to turn into sacks. I'm going to go 50%. I think this is a coin flip because I do believe one of these, probably Mafe, will have a strong second half.
I'm going 65% because I have been very critical of Mafe because he hasn't been able to finish plays. But like when you watch the tape, you just see how tantalizingly close he's getting. Like there's going to be a game he erupts, especially
it's the exit velocity. The exit velocity of pass rushing.
Yeah, he's going to have a game where he gets 2 or 2.5, and then he's going to be halfway to this total. And look, we've still got 10 games left to play. And in fact, if this said Derek Hall and Boye Mafe, I would still probably go 35-40% that they both do it because to me, they both have the talent. And I think with the way the rest of the line's playing, there's naturally going to be more opportunities for them. So I'm going 65% on that one. Really fun one here. What's the odds both Ernest Jones and Drake Thomas rack up 100-plus tackles? We were talking about this with Tyrese Knight before the season, but it's clearly Drake Thomas's job now. So can he get there is the question.
Man, yeah, he's come out of pretty much nowhere. I think Ernest Jones can fall asleep back there and get 100 at this point. He's on pace for 143. So it's really a Drake Thomas question. Can Drake Thomas get to 100? And he's on pace for 77, I believe, but also he's gaining steam along with that. He had a bit of a slow start. So I'm going to go 65%. I think if both, this is, of course, both staying healthy. If we assume that, I think this is fairly likely.
This is going to have been the theme here. Like, you are optimistic and I'm very optimistic. I'm going 75% in this one. And the real reason why is Drake Thomas has 32 tackles right now, and he has started 4 games, but that's misleading because 2 of those games he started, but Tyrese Knight had more snaps than what he did. So he's been that productive with really 2 starts under his belt. You can say, the Cardinals game, he played quite a few snaps, but he's really had 2 games where he has been the guy, and he's on pace for almost 80 tackles with that. I think he's got a very good chance to get in that 90, 100 plus tackle range. So yeah, I'm going to go 75%. All right, our last one here. This is one that we came up with in the last second, but it's a fun one. What's the odds Mike Macdonald sets the record for the most road wins for an NFL coach in his first 2 seasons? To put this in context, Nick, George Seifert of the 49ers in 89 and 90 won 13 road games in those 2 seasons. Mike Macdonald went 7-1 last year. The Seahawks right now are sitting at 3-0 on the road. They haven't lost any of their road games, so they're at 10. He needs 4 wins in the last 6 road games to topple George Seifert's record. So what are the odds do you think that happens?
So 4 out of 6 in these games: at Commanders, at Rams, at Titans, at Falcons, at Panthers, at Niners. I'm going to go, let's see. I think I like the at Commanders. I think I like that matchup. I like at Titans. I like at Panthers. And you pick off one of the divisional ones or Falcons. I'm going to go 85% this happens. I think each game is a very winnable game for the Seahawks. These guys play well on the road. The schedule is not like crazy tough. There's some road games there that are absolutely gettable. So win one of those divisional road games and then win 3 of the non-divisional games, and you're sitting pretty. So I'm going to go 85%.
I'm going to go 60%. I think that, road games are still kind of fickle by nature. I know the Seahawks have made it not look that way, but some of these trips you're going to be making a long haul over, like Carolina at the end of the season. That's a long trip. You got to go down to Atlanta. You got to make the long trip to Nashville. Like, there's some long trips in there that you could have 1 or 2 slip-ups in there. I don't know that I think that's going to happen, but I would still say there's a good chance this does. It feels like the momentum's there, but 4 out of 6 is that'd be crazy, though. Think about this, Nick. We're talking about potentially, this would be the first time since the merger that back-to-back years a team won 7 road games. It's never happened. So that's a crazy thing to think about. But I definitely think it's above the 50% threshold for me. I think that he's got a real chance to make history as the Seahawks coach in his first 2 seasons. As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Nick at NickLee51. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. With this being a bye week, there will obviously not be a post-game show, but we will be back on Monday, and we start to dive into the second half of the schedule and an upcoming Sunday night battle with the Washington Commanders. Make sure you listen in and enjoy your stress-free weekend. Go Hawks.